Hi, this is Simon from HomeKit News, and this week we're taking a more in-depth look at the Onvis Kameleon light strip that we teased you with previously. Now, if you're not already aware, this can do multiple colours in one strip and a lot more besides. Sound good? Keep watching to learn more. So, starting as we do with the packaging, here we have the Onvis Kameleon Light Strip, also known as the K1, and as with many other devices, this strip works with HomeKit, Amazon and Google. Now, the slogan used to get you all excited about this strip is "Paint Your Light," so I'll leave you to figure that one out. The version we've got here is the 5-metre version, but first let's have a look at some specs. Now, it's suitable for all regional power requirements, uses 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi and has a life cycle of approximately 20,000 hours, which should last a very long time. Onvis were kind enough to send not only the 5-metre strip but also the smaller 2-metre version, which is the one I'll be using for tests in most of this video. So let's crack this open and see what we get. So first off is the controller and the power supply with the light strip hidden underneath. The strip also comes with a few extras and we'll have a look at those shortly, but after initially handling the strip, first impressions are pretty good, as for this price I half expected something a little flimsy if I'm honest, but it actually feels quite decently made. So aside from the strip you get the manual, which also includes an instance of the HomeKit code, but the manual is worth reading as it informs you of the extra functionality of the controller and its buttons, which do more than you'd actually think. You also get a spare sticker to mount the controller if you need to relocate it at a later date. Now let's have a quick look at the controller portion of the light strip, which comes in a lozenge shape, which Onvis tell me is a reference to a chameleon, which I'm guessing is due to the profile of the creature's head. The controller itself has 3 buttons and a small hole containing a basic mic. The mic is used for music mode, which we'll see later, whilst the 3 buttons can actually perform a variety of different things depending on the amount of presses. The side of the controller has another instance of the HomeKit code, and all in all I quite like the quirky shape if I'm honest. The strip itself has adhesive backing, but Onvis also provide some clips and some screws. The K1 comes with a 2-part power supply with a barrel connector securing a power cable to the power supply. A 3-pin connector is also used to connect the strip to the other end of the power cable using a threaded cover that holds the two in place. Now, whilst it states the strip is IP65 rated, the power supply and the connector are not, even if it appears to be a very snug fit. The power plug uses a design we've seen before on HomeKit News, which allows for different pins to be connected to the one power supply, which is quite a good way of covering all regions. Now, the pins simply click into place and are also quite easy to remove as well. That's the strip ready to be powered up and tested, but let's quickly look at the 5-metre version for comparison's sake. As you can see, whilst the box is larger, the design is essentially the same, which also applies to the provided power supply and controller. Everything else included is the same, although there are more of those clips I showed earlier. The only real difference, of course, is the length of the strip itself, which I can just quickly demonstrate now by placing the 2-metre strip on top of the 5-metre one. Okay, let's get on with the functions of the strip and see how that performs. The K1 can do the basic solid colours like you see in other strips, along with a small gallery of colours to choose from that can also be edited. However, the K1 gives you a few options on how the strip changes from one colour to the next. So first you have Transit, which smoothly transitions from one colour to the next, but you also have Converge, which changes the colour from the ends to the centre. Diverge does the same but in the opposite direction, and then you have Forward and Backward, which simply change the colour going from one end of the strip to the other. On this screen you also have timer and schedule options, but I really want to show you paint mode. By way of a quick overview, the 2-metre strip comes with 60 LEDs which are collected in threes that then become units, so effectively you have 20 units on the 2-metre strip or 50 on the 5-metre strip. Each unit is capable of being a different colour, as well as being capable of displaying separate brightness and saturation levels. So here you can see I'm setting 3 units with 3 separate colours. By default, paint mode gives you 6 slots already set up with a selection of full colour designs. Here you can see the multiple colours achieved by the strip. Now I created one of my own designs earlier, which you can see here, but I'm going to clear it and demonstrate how simple it is to paint your own design. The strip waits for you to begin with the first unit glowing blue until you start painting, which is simply achieved by selecting a colour and dragging your finger across the strip user interface above. I'm creating a very simple demo in order to quickly show how easy it is to create a design. Each of the boxes in the strip user interface represent one unit, and you can change any of the colours and brightness levels in the palette below by simply tapping when it says edit, so you really do have a lot of control. You also have an option called Spectrum, which allows you to quickly create smooth multicolour designs, which also allows you to limit the range of the colour spectrum as well as the saturation and brightness levels. You can even choose whether the spectrum runs from the centre outwards, from the edges inwards, or even from one end of the strip to the other. Now if you prefer one colour, you can choose the saturation option. I'll now show you how these multicolour scenes and other modes for the K1 can be exposed to HomeKit. So first, create a new scene in the Onvis app, give the scene a relevant name, then select the K1 to be part of that scene by selecting Add Accessories. You then select the power state to be on, turn the mode toggle switch on, and from there select State if you simply want solid colour, or Mode in order to include the special modes as part of that scene. Mode gives you access to all the different modes, including the 6 user adjustable slots you find in Paint mode. In this case, I'm selecting the design I created earlier. With all that done, you just save the scene and you're finished. If we now jump into the Home app, you'll see that the scene I created earlier shows up. If I click on that scene, you'll see the strip change from solid red to the multicolour design within that scene. And just to show you that it's actually working as intended, I'll change the K1 to another solid colour and trigger that scene again to show you it changing from solid back to multicolour again. Pretty good. Let's move on to the music mode, which makes use of the controller's built-in mic. Music mode has 4 main effects and 6 sub-effects, so here's a short demo of the strip reacting to a track I produced many years ago. In that instance I was using the beat effect, but the other 3 work really well too, and in different ways. You can see here that the strip reacts to other sounds too, so clapping your hands or just speaking can trigger the lights depending on the sensitivity level. Now I'll leave you to explore this mode further. Switching to Twinkle mode, and this, as you may have already gathered, is suitable for decorative lighting you might use for certain festive times of the year, like Christmas for example. This is probably one of the more complex modes that offers quite a few presets, each of which can be customized in terms of the colour range, whilst also giving you the opportunity to set a range of levels for both saturation and brightness. Now although this isn't a mode you may use too often, the sheer amount of control is quite impressive. For example, I can limit the colours to green and blue, and also let the randomisation algorithm choose different levels of saturation and brightness as part of the preset. I doubt you'll see this kind of thing on a LifeX strip. Security mode by contrast is very basic. It doesn't have a user interface for control, as it does its thing as soon as it's selected. The mode simply flashes red, white and blue, much like police car lights. Finally onto preset mode, and this mode has, surprise surprise, 5 preset lighting effects that can't be adjusted in any way, shape or form. Of these 5 effects, the only one I'm not so keen on is Fairground, but these are quite nice effects all the same. Now hopefully the company will add more preset effects later on. One question that was asked early on regarding this strip was whether it can be cut. Initially the answer was a simple no, as the range of effects was specifically designed to work with a set number of LED units. Cutting the strip would mess with the algorithms for these effects, but I'm happy to say that Onvis will be releasing an update soon that will allow users to deactivate individual units, which means you don't even have to cut the strip if you prefer not to. If you do cut the strip, of course, then there's no return to the original setup. So once the update is released, I'd advise initially just deactivating units first before cutting the strip. let's finish up with the pros and cons, and I have to say the option for multiple colours on the strip is a clear winner from me, and I can't say how much I love this option. I'm glad that Onvis have provided a 5 metre version of the strip, as this really does work excellently with some of the special effects. Onvis hinted that they may release further size options later on. Now the amount of customisation is quite staggering, and so I've yet to delve further into some of the modes to see what else the K1 can possibly do. With multicolour scenes being exposed to HomeKit, we have possibly the main part of the appeal of the K1 for HomeKit users, so it's great they managed to pull this off. Now I don't always take the cost of a product into account, but given the amount of customisation, the price is very reasonable. Now the only con is the app itself, which at present does crash fairly regularly. Hopefully this can be addressed soon. That's our overview of the Onvis Kameleon. So is this something you've been looking forward to, or have you got another strip that you prefer? Leave any questions, comments or feedback below and I'll do my best to answer them all. Until the next time, thanks for visiting and I'll see you in the next one.